As Robert Glover talked about in his book No More Mr. Nice Guy, people with nice guy syndrome are generally trying to create what he calls a smooth, problem-free life. They're trying to get to the end of all hassles and all difficulties, and especially all emotional problems. And of course, this is fucking impossible, which is why the nice guy never is satisfied. When I read about this, it reminded me of something I wrote a long time ago called There Is No Happy Ending. I'm going to share that with you today. Think back. I want you to remember every fairy tale and myth that you were told as a child. You notice how every Disney movie and children's movie ends? That's right, it's always with, and they lived happily ever after, isn't it? It's a common theme in the messaging we receive growing up, right? The hero sets off on an adventure, they overcome some challenges, they fall in love, and then they get to settle peacefully into a kind of eternal retirement. These stories are told to us before our brains are fully developed, before we can think critically, so we drink them in and absorb them without any real skepticism. When we get to school, that concept is sold to us even harder and more directly. If you finish the essay, then that topic's done forever. If you pass the exam, then school term is completed. If you get your degree, you're done with higher learning and education completely. There's this clear message being conditioned into impressionable young minds, which is if you struggle through the challenging lesson, then pass the test, you get to enjoy a permanent vacation because it's game over. We start to believe or even expect our own happy ending. And I've decided to call this toxic little piece of psychological garbage the finish line fallacy. So the finish line fallacy is the belief that there is a final finish line in your life. While this manifests in different surface level ways for each person, which I'll go into soon, it basically consists of a subconscious drive toward reaching the end of effort and pain. Like a marathon runner dreaming of finally running through that tape at the end and it all being over. We come to believe that if we can just succeed enough, by whatever arbitrary standards we've been raised to believe is enough, then we'll be rewarded with heaven on earth. There'll be a glorious, never-ending, blissful experience with abundant resources, love, health, everything. And we don't really speak about it that much directly, but it can be clearly seen in our intentions, our goals, our dreams, our behavior. The average person can be seen rushing toward the finish line, panic-stricken with the fear that they're not going fast enough. Maybe it's the way they stress about deadlines at work, or the way they seek to move their date forward to sex in a relationship, or it's shown through their obsessive dedication to training to the point of being injured. They're future-focused, almost completely unable to be present, sacrificing all enjoyment of life now to try and constantly serve a greater goal of completion in the future. What is a finish line? The finish line takes different forms, ranging from immeasurably vague through to minutely specific. It all depends on your influences and the beliefs around what quantifies success for you. It can be financial for many people. A certain amount of money is the end goal. This can be extremely vague, like enough money to do whatever I want to be free, or extremely specific, like retire as a millionaire. It can be social, like it often is for nice guys. Vague goals like being popular, or something like a skill, say being able to talk to or sleep with anyone I like. Or it's in the form of socially accepted benchmarks, like getting married, having children, something like that. And it can be related to other areas, like health, getting a six-pack, or careers, becoming an entrepreneur or CEO, or possessions, buying a house. Often an individual can't define it, even though their behavior shows them rushing towards something. They can't really tell you what that something is very well. They only know that they take very little pleasure in processes. They only enjoy achievements. And even after success, they quickly focus on the next level of achievement. They don't get to enjoy their wins for very long. They don't stay high for very long. Many people even have a vast combination of life achievements that they're required to succeed in before they get to cross the finish line. A successful person can be defined as someone who's good at everything and has everything that everyone wants. They're financially successful and married with kids and they look great and they're healthy and they feel good all the time and they travel the world, blah, blah, blah. This huge list that they just keep adding to, and they go, then I can be happy. So whether it's specific or vague, realistic or impossible, conscious or unconscious, confined to one area of life or spread throughout all of your life, the common theme is once you get there, your struggle is over for good and you can finally rest. So what's wrong with this? What's wrong with having goals aimed at happiness? Back when I was really struggling financially, I turned to my mentor and coach at the time. And I was suffering because even though my finances were pretty stable, I still wasn't feeling secure. And I asked him and his mentor about it, and they revealed something that rocked my world. Even though they were both significantly better off than me financially, like by 10 times, by 100 times, they still had the same basic issues as me psychologically. The way they put it is, same problems, more zeros. They had already crossed my imaginary financial finish line. Like I figured I'd be happy with 6 figures a year. They were well beyond that. And yet they both still regularly struggled with money problems. And that's when it hit me. The dark, painful truth is, there's no finish line. There is no eternal happiness. No matter how many goals you accomplish, or how many achievements you add to your fucking trophy cabinet, or how many skills you possess, the problems never end. How can they end when success creates new and more problems? Let's say you make more money, you just end up having more sophisticated financial problems. The government and the banks can still take it away at any time, markets can crash, so on and so forth. There's always a reason to be worried about money. You get into a relationship or you have a lot of sex. Oh, that's good, isn't it? You can be happy now. Oh, suddenly you're thrown into the emotional worlds of other people. You got to navigate these things. You get married and have kids, and then you've got the endless issues that long-term family relationships and parenting brings up. 2 years ago, I had my first child. Holy shit, it's like starting over again with life. There's so many new problems. You buy a house, now you got to deal with mortgage and rates and insurance and maintenance, fucking neighbors. Become a CEO of a company. Now you got to protect the company and its employees and navigate the market competitively while other people hungry for your job constantly bite at your heels. Your problems will never end. There's no solution that's permanent. There are moments of happiness, but there's no such thing as a happy ending, an eternal bliss. There's no finish line. It is not physiologically possible for the brain to maintain a sense of happiness regardless of the lifestyle you have. It simply can't be done biochemically. And all the neurotransmitters have to be released from the receptors at some point. You can't maintain "yaw" as a feeling. See, what the movies and the fairy tales fail to explore is what happens to the hero after the chapter where the story ends. They don't show the handsome Prince Charming getting old and developing the gout, do they? They don't show Cinderella losing her best friend to cancer. They don't show Aladdin going through a midlife crisis and bailing his kids out of prison. They don't show you any of that shit. They show you the bit where they had their biggest high and then the credits roll. But you think, but I see all these happy people all the time. I'm on Instagram, flicking through, everyone's looking like they're having a grand old time, constantly. I know people always look like they're happy. I'm friends with people who never seem to have any problems. Surely it's possible. Surely they're not fucking lying, right? There are some people who appear to have crossed the finish line, at least from your perspective. They seem to have what you want, or dominate the skill that you wish to master, and you don't see them suffering the way that you feel like you're suffering. Firstly, this is mostly a problem of your naivety about human psychology. To be blunt, they are pretending. People are very good at pretending. Very, very good at it. Why do you think there's so many movies with so many great actors? Because humans are naturally good at faking it. A human being can go for a very long time convincing everyone around them, including their closest family and friends, that they are doing exceptionally well without exception. And yet, on the inside, the entire time, They're highly anxious, depressed, miserable, unsatisfied. Humans can hide that, and they hide it well. You know this because you do it, and you are convincing most of the time. Now, some people do have a mostly satisfying and fulfilling lifestyle. You don't see them at their home. You don't see them arguing with their partner. You don't see them trying to manage their kids when their kids are being brats. You don't see them trying to balance the checkbook when things are getting rough. You just see hyped up Facebook posts and painted on smiles. Have a closer look at the people who have it all, right? Notice how someone like Dan Bilzerian seems compelled to show off via Instagram. Why would he do that if he was content with his life? Why would these people put on a show if they were actually happy? Why do they need your validation? Why do they need to prove something if they're sure of it? You might notice how your happily married friends never go traveling or take any risks. What does that tell you about how much fear controls them? You gotta look for the exceptions beyond the perfect image that they try to paint. And you also gotta understand that your finish line might be nothing to them. Maybe they crossed it and it brought them no satisfaction whatsoever. Maybe that's not what their finish line looks like. You might have even crossed their one and they're jealous of you. There's some realizations I had about a few of my finish line role models. Tim Ferriss, massively successful author, big influence on me. Turns out he struggles regularly with bipolar disorder and often quite potentially suicidal levels of depression. Who fucking knew until he told everyone? Mother Teresa, famous saint, revered for her altruism, much loved and adored, as popular as I'd ever want to be in my neediest times. Empirical evidence has emerged supporting the claim that she deliberately kept people sick so that they needed her, and she deprived them of medication that would have eased their suffering. Not quite the person I want to be, actually. Jonathan Davis, one of my favourite people when I was a teenager, lead singer of Korn, one of my favourite bands. I worshipped him. And then I found out he was bullied and sexually abused as a child, and that he became a drug addict after Korn got famous. So not really the ideal life that I should envy. See, it turns out they're all just humans, and they've got problems, and they continued long past achieving their financial success or their fame or their legacy. They just still had problems. You also got to think, maybe the reason some people are so successful and possibly even genuinely happy in a consistent way with life is not because they've crossed the finish line, but for some other reason that you can't see or imagine. Maybe they've discovered a more helpful motivation to live, a point to aim for that isn't eternal comfort and pleasure. Maybe their finish line accomplishments are merely a byproduct, consequence, of pursuing some other higher goal. But if there's no happy ending, what's the point? Right? Why try? Why do anything if it doesn't end in bliss? As the Buddha quoted, joyful participation in the suffering of the world. That's Buddhism. Proper Buddhism, not the fucked up shit you see around the world these days. Well, Mark Manson in his book, Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, satisfaction with life is about finding better problems to have, not about ending problems. You enjoy solving problems, don't you? So you got to assume you'd enjoy solving all your problems forever. But if you think about it, that doesn't even make sense. Not only can you be sure that you will never end all of your problems, there's too much evidence that every single human has always had problems till the day they died, but without problems you can't enjoy solving them. It's like you can't be a policeman if there are no criminals. You think that resolving the problem satisfies you, but you only enjoy it because of the painful process before the resolution. The satisfaction comes from the pain. So I encourage you to reframe the endless suffering that is life into something else. It's a never-ending abundance of problems to solve, as long as you focus on the ones you should be solving. Even an impossible problem like death that can't be solved. You can solve the challenge to reach acceptance of dying. Having acceptance about problems you can't solve might be the most difficult and rewarding problem to solve after all. That rush you get when you solve that seemingly impossible problem, like when I'm playing chess and it looks like I'm definitely going to lose and then I find a way out of it, that fuck yeah, thought it was over. That feeling. How are you supposed to feel that if you don't have any problems? How are you supposed to get that thrill from something that terrified you originally. The truth is that eternally happily ever after would bore you. It would drive you fucking insane. That problem-free, smooth life is hell. It's hell disguised as heaven. You think you'd like it. You won't. That's why all the celebrities become fucking drug addicts. They don't have enough good problems to solve. And they fall to pieces in the face of all that bliss and comfort and stimulation. They'll kill you slowly. Like a spoiled brat suffering eventually because everything goes their way. Thankfully, there is no end to problems. You don't have to worry about them running out. Unlimited potential for satisfaction waits for you. You just got to find a new problem to solve and go solve it. Just make sure you choose one that you can solve. One that's challenging but important and meaningful and not impossible. That's your only real problem, is figuring out which problems are worth trying to solve. Instead of aiming for a finish line, you take the more stoic kind of approach of looking for the most satisfying, value-aligned problem for you to tackle today. And not even to solve it, just to try and solve it. You got to understand that problems might never be fully remedied, like, say, trying to be totally honest. I still haven't solved that problem. I'm as honest as I can be, and I still constantly slip into dishonesty, and I'm not aware of it until afterwards. Well, fuck, that wasn't quite true. It's like I just can't solve this piece. No matter how honest I try to be, there's more I could do. But the attempt to be more honest is where my satisfaction is. Noticing these little nuances, these little slips and tricks. You know, it used to be like just trying to be honest at all was my problem. That's a terrible problem to have. Now it's like trying to get my language perfect to actually say what's on my mind, even though that's kind of impossible. Those little tweaks where I just get slightly better at it each day. I enjoy those tweaks, you know? It feels like mastering. It feels like black belt communication. But it's never going to end. I'd need like 20 whole lifetimes to really resolve it. There's not enough time and not enough hours in the day to interact enough for me to solve that problem completely. But I don't need to. I just need to keep chipping away at it to get satisfaction for every little lesson that I learn. So let go of getting to the end. It's retirement or endless guaranteed love from a partner who never dies or cheats, or total mastery of a skill where there'll always be younger people who are better at it than you. You know, you're never going to get there. This line is always going to run away from you as you get closer to it. Fucking forget about it. And instead try to look at solving the biggest problem at all. How can you enjoy just being alive with life the way it is? If you want help solving that problem, get in touch, dan@brojo.org. We can talk about valued living and integrity instead of being a nice guy. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.